Wollongong,
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burmese 99.5 FM. Kiteshare Radio.
(13:36). It is time for elections and a COVID-19 watch with the late birds this afternoon. Gildarie, alongside, as you know him, Mr. Yog Mahadeo. Good afternoon, late birds.
I'm not sure. You got to show a little respect for your elders, and that is Dr. Yog Mahadeo for you. And so be very careful. And when you use the word birds, I think it is totally inappropriate. Like it was inappropriate for Gildarie to mute Yog's thing. You know that is not going to go away for a little while. And so we are seeking counseling separate from people who are going to try to get us over that traumatic experience. But I think Yog is a very forgiving soul. And so I stand very assured that our relationship is going to be back on level playing field within the next couple of days. In the meantime, I want to say a good day to everybody right across this good nation of ours, and wherever you're joining us from overseas in North America, Europe, Caribbean. It's a beautiful day, a little drizzly in some parts, but still a very beautiful day in this wonderful country of ours. And so good day to my co-host, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. I think in the next couple of days, Yog, we'd have to go to Glen Lal and ask him for a raise, because I can't see us continue working here and not use the opportunity to twist his arms behind his back. You agree with that?
Well, Glenn would then tell me, well, I'm going to give you a cent or a dollar because anything.
Words.
The truth is this has been a voluntary effort on our behalf. But let me stand up for Kevin Smith. I don't like how you're bashing my good friend here, Kevin Smith. Kevin, don't worry. If we're late and we have to take responsibility. Don't worry, Mr. Gildarie, Kevin. That's all right.
Well, I'm going to try to be as forgiving as you are. When you sleep late, you wake up early, and you're on the grind. You're allowed to have some freedom of some bad tempers. But that being said, it's a very serious day for us today. It's June the 13th, a very momentous day in the history of this country, and we're going to tell you a little while why it is momentous. But let us get right down into it. All across Guyana, good day to you people. Yesterday, we would have had a number of things happening. One, we would have had that very intense interview with Mr. Owen Arthur, the former Prime Minister of Barbados. He's also is the chair for the Commonwealth Observer Group that came together for the March 2nd elections. Had many things to say. We're going to try to dissect a couple, as was covered or as is covered today in the Saturday edition of Kiteshare News. We also paying attention to that interview appearance in the media, selected media last evening by President David Granger. And of course, last evening also, right here on Kiteshare Radio, yourself and myself, Yog, would have had Dr. Irfan Ali, presidential candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic, on here, and we would have grilled him rather on some of the plans, including how does he heal a divided nation. We would have asked him about how do you deal with an economy that seems to be on the edge, and that's another statement there. However, there's some major breaking news. June the 13th, I did mention June the 13th. June the 13th was a deadline in which Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield would have had to submit a report to the Guyana Elections Commission on the elections recount. And the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, has 3 days, within 3 days, to make a declaration for which party or whether it's a coalition of the party would have won the March 2nd elections. And I'm going to read you the breaking news as was put up by Kiteshare News. Lowenfield submits report on elections results to GCOM. Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield has submitted a report on the results of the elections to the Guyana Elections Commission. That's today. GCOM's Public Relations Officer Yolanda Ward confirmed this in a report to media workers at about 1 p.m. today. She said that the commissioners will also be receiving copies of the report shortly. Lowenfield was also given today as a deadline for the submission of the report pursuant to the order of the National Recount. The results of the recount show that the PPP see to have a lead over the coalition of some 15,416 votes. The commission is expected to deliberate on the report, then decide whether it will request the CEO to use the data as the basis for the submission of a report under Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act. The Commission has also until Tuesday, June the 16th, upon submission of the report, to make a final decision. Yog, let's get right into it. Let us talk about the submission of the report. Why is it important? And let's talk about June the 16th. We would have been talking about it, but we are in the middle of it at the moment. What does it really mean? What is this report that Lowenfield would have submitted? What does it entail? And what does the GCOM commission itself, what do they have to do at the moment?
Well, let me just repeat something you said. Yes, based on all the information at hand, Lowenfield's report has been submitted to the chairman of GCOM. So, because a few persons have been asking that whether the submission has been made to GCOM or whether the commissioners have a copy, our information, Leonard, is that it has been submitted to the chairman of GCOM. And I would presume, based on what we know now, that the next steps would include one, that the chairman of GCOM would now call on the commissioners to receive and study the report, because that has to happen. To your question, the next steps, of course, as I said, there would be for the commission to acknowledge receipt of the report, because nobody from the commission has officially said they received the report. Whether they're required to is another matter. The fact that they have received the report is what is the information out there. Now, one of the next steps, if one were to go with some of the politicians, including Mr. Granger, who said there is a four-step, and the four-step has to happen one after the other, and so forth and so on. So remember that part 13 of that order would say that the CARICOM scrutinizing team shall submit a report to the commission, which may include their observations, recommendations, and conclusions. So we have not heard any comments, we have not received any information as to whether the CARICOM scrutinizing team, whether their report is ready and would have been submitted to the commission. You have to remember though, Leonard, the commission is not obliged to consider or to even include any part of the observer mission report into its deliberations. That is very clear in the order that it will receive, it shall be submitted by the observer team, but the commission will only deliberate on the report of Lowenfield. Now, just to close it off like this, to say the following, that the Lowenfield's report would be a two-part report. One is the statistics, the numbers or the matrices for the order, which reflects the recount, the statement of the certificate of recounts, and of course, the summary of the observation. So that would be what he would have submitted, Leonard.
All right, for the sake of clarification, Yog, I would like for you to tell the people of Guyana the circumstances that led to the order that would have created or made into reality this recount, and by signing on to it, what it really meant, whether it's a legal document. We're hearing all kinds of statements that are coming out now that it's just a count, then we're hearing that there's anomalies, there's observations that was made that came back to March the 2nd with those votes. It was, first of all, free and fair, free from fraud, free from fear. And then all of a sudden, we hear now that something went wrong, that there was a conspiracy by the People's Progressive Parties and others to stuff ballot boxes, because there were records missing from a lot of those ballot boxes, especially in Region 4. And that being the case, there was very little way that they could verify whether those votes were authentic, and therefore the entire elections could be deemed null and void, or we'd have to do it over. So I want to talk, first of all, a little about that order, what it means when the party would have agreed and when they would have signed on to that order. Let's talk about the legality of that.
You mentioned something there, and it is a very important aspect that Guyanese need to take note of and need to remember. The basis of this order, Leonard, Mr. Granger, I believe, I don't know what word to use his statement of last night, other than an absolute farcical statement coming from a big man. When he said in his most recent outburst that it is these allegations and these irregularities that led to the recount in the first place, that is absolutely not so. That is absolutely opposite to the truth. The truth is that he himself would have said in the inception, he had originally said that he did not want to swear in under the Clouded Mingo's declaration. He said, and his own party went against him from day one on that, because they insisted, or his party members did not want this recount. So Mr. Granger has been the last person to catch the bus, his own David G. bus, right through. From elections day to now, Mr. Granger has been the last person to catch the David Granger bus. His party has always run ahead. His party has created a narrative, and the poor man has had to come at the end and adopt those narratives and accept them. So in the first case, it was a total farce, that it was the irregularities and so forth. That was not it. We all know what was it. These people feel they're talking to a country that has not been following these elections. So, Leonard, the truth is that the recount and the basis of the recount, to answer your question, was very different. Remember that when they went to the court for the second time, and Madam Chairman, Justice Claudette Singh, said and gave an undertaking she's going to have a recount done. And so it is on those bases that a recount would have been set up. Don't forget, GCOM took 3 to 4 weeks after that to get the recount into motion, to get things going. And, that itself would be something that we'd have to remember. We can't forget these things, because people want to change narrative by blatant, outright lies sometimes to say this is not so and that is not so. So to answer your question, Leonard, the basis upon which it happened was very different from the new narrative that started to be spewed from yesterday.
Yes, and so the legality of that recount, everybody signed on to it. There should be a recognition of GCOM. The president has already says that I will accept what the recount results are. What do you understand by that? It is very clear to me, but there are some people who says that's double language.
It is. I mean, the truth is that, Leonard, how blatant can I be? I mean, let me just take my gloves off.
Don't use bad words. You know what the bad words are.
Those who know me would not have never used a bad word in my life. You would have never heard me use any.
Even when you were small?
Even when I was small. I've always,
I don't believe that, man.
You ask anybody who knows me since I was small. Anyway, coming to the point. Look, I want to say it how it is. Up to yesterday, you and I were on radio, and we abhorred Mr. What's the guy's name from Barbados?
Owen Arthur.
Not Owen Arthur, the other guy who...
John Beale.
Yes. We abhorred, both you and I, we were... we didn't want to repeat that title of sanctimonious whatever. However, sanctimonious indeed. I'm not going to even talk about the last part of that phrase, because here is what. Mr. Granger has, as I said, been the last person to join his own party's bus. He allowed the narrative to be set, and I think up to yesterday, Leonard, you tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Granger stood apart and aside as a respectable great-grandfather that is there standing up for what is right. His last appearance in front of GCOM when he seconded the Aquatic Center for his press conference, his last appearance there, he said they're going to accept the GCOM's results. I think the double speak that we would have heard coming out of him last night is extremely worrying to this nation. I have heard he has been making statements last night of a couple of things. One, he is now completely embraced the words of Harman. In other words, the incumbent, Mr. Granger, has said that nobody must interfere, nobody must give a comment. Do not comment and intrude in another's internal affair. He doesn't want to know have people even comment on our affairs. Don't forget, the same country has its appearance in front of the International Court in a couple of weeks' time to talk about our border issue with Venezuela. And you want CARICOM, you want people to be on your side, right? But now you're telling people, don't comment and don't intrude on our internal affairs. He said, and I'm quoting, it would be premature and reckless, he's calling the international bodies reckless, for anybody outside of the country to come to the conclusion that a process is completed and it hasn't been completed. Well, maybe, I don't know what is his state of mind, but at least the major part of the process is completed. At least the world knows the numbers, and based on Article 177, the world knows those numbers. That cannot be changed. In every other country in this world, a loser would have conceded and would say, let's put the country first. But here, I think Mr. Granger has surprised everybody. Last night, he came out, and I think he has basically said, no matter what happened, he's not giving up power, because he also said he is willing to talk about sharing.
Well, some very, very straight statements there. And of course, the conclusions are very, very shocking, to say the least. Let's go straight to the front page of Kaiser News, because it tells the tale of what Guyana politically, where it's standing at the moment. So Saturday, June the 13th, 2020, this is what history is going to say when you go back in the archives. Guyana can't withstand the fire of the entire global community. Former Prime Minister of Barbados, Owen Arthur, and he would have said this yesterday during an interview on Kaicho Radio, late story. Granger falsely claims coalition's allegations cause recount, makes no mention of Mingo's fraud. And I think there's a caption, there's a very beautiful picture. Honesty, integrity, decency, David Granger has finally laid claim to his coalition's unproven allegations of electoral fraud, even as he ignores the tabulation claimant Mingo rigged twice in his favor. So the gloves are off. Yog, former Bajan Prime Minister, defends incoming CARICOM chair, this is Ralph Gonsalves, who came under criticisms by the administration for daring, for making statements about the elections in Guyana, which was deemed premature and almost as if it's interference. Harman has no authority to speak, he's out of order. That is what the ex-PM would have said. The eyes on the wall of unclotted Singh. This is the former Bajan PM. Interesting front page, Yog. Any takes?
Well, look, I mean, how much can you say it, Leonard? Because it's at some stage getting to the point where I am doing something that I don't like to do, and that is to be disrespectful to our elders. But when our elders want to lie, cheat, and steal, you have to be outspoken. Now, today, you know what is significant about today, and what was significant about his statements last night? Today, his party engineered the killing of Walter Rodney many years ago. Today is the anniversary of Walter Rodney's death. We know what the Commission of Inquiry brought out, and one day you and I will have to sit with the persons who submitted evidence to the Commission of Inquiry and have an open discussion with them so the public can know what happened. You have to ask yourself the question,
Well,
who were the people that put Walter Rodney to his grave? Where are they today? Not all of them have died. Which political party was in power? You know, and the truth is, Leonard, to your question there, to hear Mr. Granger says people should be more prudent in their remarks. And hear this part. We know what we are doing. Sure right, sir. You are sure right, Mr. Granger. You know what you are doing, but you're failing to realize everybody sees what you're doing, and your goose is cooked. Everybody knows what's happening. Everybody is seeing it plainly and clearly what is happening, because democracy is now being thwarted because one set of people refuse to heed the will of the electorate.
and so, let us get right into it, because there's some other things that's happening we should be paying attention. A company comes into Guyana, and this is a narrative, invest in opening a large-scale mining operations in the hinterlands, was given lots of opportunities in terms of incentive, tax, and other breaks, then decided it's running into problem. You bring in another company. Should that company there be given the same concessions? Yog, over to you.
Well, look, it's a matter of how much a country wants to attract investors. Let's put oil aside for now. If an investor comes in the country, Leonard, and the investor wants to, I don't know if I'm getting the gist of your question correctly here, but if the investor wants to invest and employ, let's say, 10 local Guyanese here, the 10 local Guyanese are going to be paid by the investor. The investor would have to pay employers contribution for NIS and a lot of local taxes and so forth. Giving concession to an overseas investor is always good, because you want them to become a citizen of the country. You want a business, not a person necessarily, but you want a business to be a hard, long stayer in Guyana's economy. And so this is why you would want to encourage and give them incentives. Now, it does not speak to the equality of the local operators. So if Glenlal has a newspaper operating, and he's being paid or he's being charged taxes. And we knew this, Leonard. You and I spoke about this during the formative year, during the last administration. Mm-hmm. If Glenlal is creating a newspaper and he wants to bring in a newsprint, and he has to pay $1,000 per roll for the newsprint as taxes, import taxes. But Leonard Gildarie goes to start a newspaper, and Leonard Gildarie is allowed to bring in newsprint for the next 3 years, but you're bringing it now to take advantage of the incentives you'll be getting, then that is not fair, because it means you are given a free pass to compete with a local operator in the future. So those incentives needs to be assessed as to how it encourages you to come in, but long term, it must not be a debilitating thing onto the local players.
Absolutely, and so that's a debate, and that's for something that we'd have to look at another night. How do we balance what we're given to overseas investors versus our local? Our locals have been saying that if you give us the same kind of incentives, we could probably even do more and make use of what we have here. But at the end of the day, Yog, we have to be paying attention to another area. I'm looking at the COVID-19 cases here. The United States of America, over 2 million persons infected so far, 646,000 persons recovered, 116,000 deaths. That's in the United States of America alone. Brazil, 813,000 persons confirmed, 397,000 persons recovered, 41,000, almost 42,000 deaths. And of course, it's followed by Russia, 520,000 cases, 275,000 recovered, 6,829 deaths so far. This is not going away anytime soon. We have to continuously pay attention. For a long time, I did not hear people talking about washing hands, wearing your mask. It seems as if these little messages that we would have started. I see people wearing the mask, then take it off and talk to the other person that's in front of them. Sometimes I myself make that mistake, but we have to continuously pay attention. We don't know. We simply don't know who may have it, and because you could go into a bus, a minibus, one of the passengers come as far as way from Latham and is on his way to the East Coast, and that person jumps in that bus, the entire bus gets it. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. We have to pay attention. We have not been hearing a lot from anybody with regards to whether there's any cases in Region 7, whether there's any cases in Region 9. We just haven't total figures. So what is happening with regards to COVID-19 across the nation? We have to continuously ask. What I could tell you, I saw CDC, Civil Defense Commission advertisement. Apparently something is happening with regards to help for the people of Guyana. They have put out an ad to shop owners who could probably put in application if you want to provide food to or for hampers that is going to be to the value of between $25,000 to $30,000. You must have a clean place that has space for social distancing, meaning they're going to give people, I think, vouchers, Yog, and you could go down to that particular shop or place that they would have, or a bond, and you would have to be in lines 6 feet apart to probably collect hampers. So, but you would get a voucher, and they're asking for persons who have capacity, that's shop owners and others, to put in applications. So that's some news on that side there. But that came out in an ad. The people, media houses, have not really been briefed as to what is happening with regards to help for the people, and we are waiting on that. So, Yog, in a very short while, before I hand over to you, let me remind our viewers that we will be opening our lines. We have been opening it because we want to hear. We want to stop talking a little and hear from you, the people of Guyana. So what is happening in your area, whether you're up in the Pomeroon River, whether you're down in the East Bank, all the way to Crabwood Creek, whether it's West Bobbies, in the Back Dam, in the field, in the rice field, like we've been hearing from some folks here. We want to hear from you. So we will be opening the lines in a few minutes. But before I do that, yesterday, Yog and myself would have announced that based on several requests of people asking this and that, we took the initiative upon ourselves, as well as with the back end of News Kite Show Radio, and we would have gotten some hampers for some of the most needy people, some, care stuff. It's not much, but it's a start. We will continue to do that. I'm happy to tell you that some of those people, Yog, would have come this morning, and smiles on the face was enough. So bless you people, and thank you very much for being with us. We will continue to work to make this country a little better place. It's been a pleasure every single day to come here and share with you the news, our views, bringing in the people that matters, the decision makers, to give you their take on what is transpiring, what is progressing, what is developing in this country. Yog, over to you before we open the lines.
Thank you. Leonard, this Walter Rodney's assassination is an important thing, and we should not let today go by without paying homage to a great son of this soil that has, you mentioned Walter Rodney name probably in any country of the world, and they will know who you're talking about. The man created waves of political conscience globally. So Rodney's contribution to political emancipation around the world is there and has to be recognized. In passing, I want to say this, that Guyana very reluctantly, eventually had the Commission of Inquiry. Now, there was a delay, a purposeful delay, I believe, in printing of the Commission report. The question of whether the report has ever been presented to the Guyana legislative body is something that we have to answer. I want to mention this. I'm reading from an article from workers.org, Current Guyana President David Granger was a former commander of the Guyana Defense Force and held that position at the time of Rodney's assassination. Granger has been a leading figure in the PNC for many years. And the report, the Commission of Inquiry report, concluded as follows. Prime Minister Burnham knew of the plan and was part of the conspiracy to assassinate Dr. Walter Rodney. Given all the relevant facts, events, and circumstances set out in the report, we unhesitatingly conclude that Gregory Smith was not acting alone, but had the active and full support, participation, and encouragement of, and or was aided and abetted by the Guyana Police Force, the Guyana Defense Force, agencies of the state, and the political directorate in the killing of Dr. Walter Rodney. Those are the that's part of the conclusion of the Commission of Inquiry that was held into the assassination of Walter Rodney. And it goes further to say this, Leonard. We accept that Gregory Smith, renamed Cyril Milton Johnson, received state assistance in going to French Guyana. All of those things we need to share with members of the public. People needs to know the history of this country. Now, a lot of people want to, even people within the WPA, they just use Walter Rodney's name as a buy to gain access to public and to gain access to emotion and support. But, the WPA has killed Walter Rodney's movement, the current leaders of WPA. And I must say this to you as well. Just like how there are people who want us to forget Walter Rodney and his contributions, and the damage and the murder and the assassination that was done, just like that, a lot of people want us to forget Mingo and his assassination of decency within the halls of GCOM.
Absolutely, the yoga, and that is an interesting thing. Back in the 80s, back in the 70s, the news of Dr. Walter Rodney, a big thing. His party is the Working People's Alliance, and they are a part of the A Partnership for National Unity, APNO, which forms a major part of the coalition, or it's one of the factions within APNO. So it's an interesting thing. We're looking at what this report that would have been coming out from that inquiry. So 226-7453, 226-7453. We want to hear from you people today. And also we want to hear from you via our WhatsApp number. We have a WhatsApp number. Don't call on that number. We're going to try to put in some more lines next week. We have our technicians here, and so they're going to come in and put in some more lines. 226-7453. You can call us on that. We want to hear from you today. What is happening? What are some of your feelings? Let us keep this conversation clean. Let us keep it out of any racism. Let us keep it factual. I've been told by management that we would want to encourage from the newspaper here, from the radio, and as well as myself and Dr. Yog Mahadeo, clean conversation with regards to the development of this country, but with regards to how do we move our status from where we are as a developing country to a first world country. And the only way we can do that is by having clean minds, clean hearts, and of course a good conversation. And good conversation has to be giving us solutions as well. So I think there's a caller in line already. Good afternoon, caller, you on the air? Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air?
I would like to add a little bit to Mr. Yog's comment about Mr. Granger being part of the murder of Dr. Walter Rodney at the time, today being his anniversary. I want to think that at around that same time, if Mr. Yog might remember, I don't know the exact date, but Granger was the commander of the army at the same time that they killed Father Bernard Dark, also the Jesuit priest that was very effective in protesting Burnham's policies. The second thing, yes, I did hear him say that the WPA members of today has actually broken up the WPA movement. I remembered when they joined up in APNU, I once mentioned Walter Rodney might have been spinning in his grave to see what happened. As my father would say, turning in your grave. Walter Rodney wasn't turning in his grave. He was spinning in his grave to see what the PNC did to him, and the present members of the WPA did by joining up in APNU, that was amazing. Amazingly disgusting. So, Mr. Yog, if you could put some light and let the public know, Father Bernard Dark suffered just as much under the PNC and under Granger. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, dear caller. Yog, interesting point.
Yes, indeed. Well, the reason we want to keep it separate, while it all comes down to the same thing, because the caller is pointing out, these things that happened within Guyana's history. The reason why we raised Walter Rodney's assassination was, of course, because, Walter Rodney, today is the anniversary. Today is the anniversary for that. But yes, Guyanese-based priest, would have been stabbed to death. I don't know if youngsters would know this name now, but there was once the House of Israel, a church, a religious cult that was tied to the People's National Congress. That at its lowest point in Guyana democracy, Dark was murdered. For you youngsters, just Google murder of Bernard Dark, and you will see even photos that show the point in time, when they were pursuing Bernard Dark. And remember, he was not an activist. In those days, the Catholic Church was extremely outspoken and very much standing up for the rights of people and the rights of people in Guyana. In those days, Leonard, you had something called the Guyana Human Rights Association that was very outspoken, very pragmatic, and represent. I know these organizations like the WPA still exist, but it's only a shell, and they have now lost their voice against whatever would have transpired in these last 10 years in Guyanese politics. But yes, the caller is right. I wish to quickly also mention, Leonard, because a lot of persons are interested, and I must acknowledge, I think one of our viewers, Desiree, I think is the name, that would have raised that there's been these alleged murders. I think 420 persons is the allegations, 420 persons that would have been killed. And I'm using those killed in lifted commas. So I would encourage Desiree to go and check. If you look at media reports, one of the newspaper houses in Guyana did an extensive investigation into it's called the prison break carnage. Leonard, I know this is Kaiser News, but let me say this. It was a Stabrook News investigation into the 420 persons that were killed between February 2002 and September 2006. And let me just outline 2 or 3 of the top ones. Troy Williams, prison officer that was shot during the escape from prison. That is in the list, like as if a government was responsible for that. Let me just read this next one. Police Sergeant Harry Kusaram. He was shot 6 times soon as he left home to go to work. Let me read another one. Errol Taps Butcher. Let me read another one. Sulen Shepard, Ramdeo Prasad, Wesley Hendricks, Mark Sancho, Sita Prasad, killed by bandits as she relaxed in her hammock at her home. But all of these people, Dorothy, are still in that list. That list that we are talking about, Dorothy, these persons are in that list. So when we're talking about a list of persons, we need, all the criminals that were raping and creating mayhem. All of a sudden, they seem to become incarnations of good. We need to separate it, and we need to be factual and realistic about things in this country if we ever want to move on. Creating an umbrella to cover for any of the ills, Leonard, let me say this, to create an umbrella to cover any of the ills of the PPP administration is as bad as creating an umbrella to cover any of the ills of a PNC administration. We here in these seats in Kaicho Radio have been calling it how we see it. When PPP was there doing what, and last night we challenged here finale, talk about corruption. So when they were doing it, we were calling them out. And now that you are doing it, we have to call you out. And this nonsense of abusing people must stop. I have called, and Leonard, I know you are not backing me with this. It is my personal call. Defund the Chronicle. Defund the state media.
Well,
let us have an equanimity. Let us have an open, let the media be private sector. You already have. Look, when Granger wanted to go to a media house, where he go to? He go to talk to a wall. He doesn't want to face journalists. Even when he goes to face journalists, he restricts you. You can only ask 2 questions. All right, let's compare it. I'm not praising Irfan Ali, but last night we threw the kitchen sink at Irfan Ali. And to his credit, he came. He thought he was coming to a very hostile environment, and we were no way friends with him, but he answered every question. He was not ashamed. He was not in any way telling us we can't talk to him. So we need to be outspoken. And whoever you are, if you want to be in politics, Mr. Granger, if you want to continue heading your party, come and face the press. Don't speak to the walls. Mr. Harman is not facing the media. He's speaking to a wall. And that's what we have. You're hiding behind rooms and throwing bricks.
And talking about
come
that,
where people can ask you questions and come and face the public.
And talking about that interview last night with Dr. Irfan Ali, let me tell you something, Yog. The next president, the next administration that comes in here is going to be under so much scrutiny you would not believe. We have an awakening of the people of Guyana. We have an awakening of the media that you've never seen before. Don't forget that the entire media business has changed dramatically. This whole thing with social media, with Facebook and YouTube and what's the other one, Twitter and so on, it has made the news available to the people just at a click of a button. So you could be in Success, you could be in Bartica, you could be in Latam, wherever you are. If something happened, it's going to hit the net in a very short while. So the people are looking. So if you believe government is going to come and believe that they're going to have a free reign, there ain't going to be no honeymoon for the next administration that comes in. I'm very careful in my words here because we're waiting GCOM to do their thing. But the figures are very clear what has been speaking as to what the recount says. So Yog, that was one of the things that we put to Irfan Ali last evening. The statement that are you prepared for what is going to come for scrutiny? And he's basically said, yes, I think he understands, it's my impression that he understands in his mind that the people are going to be very unforgiving for any kind of indiscretions that is going to come from his administration or any other administration that goes in their yoke.
Correct. And I wish to tell you this too. There's been a lot of speculation as to where Lowenfield's report has actually been written. And I think based on the information coming out, the order, Leonard, I mean, it's clear what is happening in this country. The order does not give Lowenfield the ability to make an opinion. The opinion of the facts must be presented to the commission, and the commission must draw an opinion. But what Lowenfield has done, and I want to share this with you and viewers, what Lowenfield has done, he has delivered a report of his opinion. He has delivered a report of his opinion. And Lowenfield is now using his position as the CEO to sway the opinion of the commission. He's no more independent. Lowenfield is not an independent CEO, and this thing needs to be called out. He has created, or a report has been created that he has presented to the commission that reflects one side. And I can tell you, Lowenfield creates a position where he's reporting that, or he has given an opinion that he cannot count on, or he cannot rely on the results presented in the recount.
This is confirmed. This is confirmed, Yog?
Yes,
it is confirmed.
This is what is Lowenfield stuff now. Yes.
Okay, but let us tell you, this morning that report was delivered, according to our reports, to the chairperson, that is Justice Retired Claudette Singh. And what we hearing is that based on what is happening today, the GCOM, the commission itself, with the 6 commissioners, as well as the chairperson, will likely not meet today to discuss that report. It will be studied. I understand that the report, as maybe as at 1 o'clock, was not given to the commissioners as yet. Maybe there's going to happen sometime during the day. So the meeting with regards to the contemplation of that report could happen as early as tomorrow. I'm being told that. So it could happen as early as tomorrow. We could very well see a declaration being made as early as Monday. We could very well see that. But we have until Tuesday for that to be made. But let's come back to that report, Yog. Even if Lowenfield gives an opinion or go into any other way, don't forget there are 3 commissioners on one side, that is for the opposition side, for the People's Progressive Party side, that has been nominated by them, who are going to be watching very carefully. Don't forget also that the chairperson that is sitting there would be paying attention to see what's the legality of whether those opinions or whatever statements that Lowenfield would have, in addition to those numbers that he would be putting in the report of the recount, whether they would have any basis of the considerations of the Guyana Elections Commission with the 6th commissioner and herself. So I think that is going to be a very critical point that is going to be coming out from the meetings that they're going to have. They're going to zero in on that. Let us see whether there's any kind of legal basis for the consideration of that, and so we will be paying attention.
Yes. And Leonard, I think I can say this, that you know, as we expected, you and I would have spoken about this probably 2 days ago. I think it was expected that Mr. Lowenfield would do this. After Mr. Mingo is not there now, the next person to rely on. I think these elections have been stolen. I think these elections, you know, have been, and Guyanese would have to remember these actors, these players, and have to keep careful. Not here is a group of people that increased taxes to this country for over $300 million during their watch.
Billion or million?
Yes. Yet the country, well, hold on. I'm going to come to the numbers also, but yet this country is in a deficit. So obviously, I think all moves are being made to steal these elections using one thing or another. I don't know. I mean, shame and disgrace and everything else, all the adjectives you could put are not enough. And, you know, I think that, you know, Guyana is going to face some real testing times in the future. And one has to now see what the next couple of days are going to have. Yes, Leonard, you're right. In a matter of days, GCOM is going to make that decision. I think also Mr. Granger's statement, and I wish to repeat it, one of the statements he made last night, we know what we are doing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that is the reality of that statement is going to hit us in the face in a very short time.
I think you're dancing with words there. Let me see if I could break it down there. You're saying there's going to be a non-acceptance of the results by the coalition?
I think that, look, I hate to say this online because, you know, I don't want to be accused of creating any public concerns. The reality is that I think that GCOM, the commission, we already know that 3 members of the commission will vote one way. We already know that 3 members of the commission will vote the other way, so that it will be left to the chairman, Claudette Singh. Claudette Singh, if Claudette Singh does not have the basis upon which to make a decision, so if Lowenfield's report is a report of opinions rather than a report of statistics, and a report of summary of observations, it means Lowenfield has, and remember, there is no investigative arm within Lowenfield. Lowenfield does not have the ability to investigate. How can okay, let me put it this way, Leonard. If Lowenfield is to say that District 1 does not appear to satisfy fairness, impartiality, and compliance. It means Lowenfield investigated. It means Lowenfield took time out and investigated these allegations, and so he's making a conclusion. And that conclusion is what he's now sending to the chairman. I want to know, but we wouldn't be allowed to question Lowenfield as to whether he did those investigations. It's obviously doctored up, and he is taking that report to the chairman, and the chairman will now have a report to say, well, can she go in the face of such words or not? So I don't know that this election is in any way over by any long stretch.
Well, I think I would want to disagree with you at this point in time for three reasons. One, we're talking about a judge who's in charge of GCOM here. We're talking about the woman who has gone to the court and would have submitted an affidavit stating that she is going to go for the way of a recount. We're talking about somebody who would have overseen the recount and being told that she did not leave during those 33 days of the recount, that she went there every single day and she was in there. In fact, I was told that she was in the middle of the floor, that she didn't have an office, that she was sitting in the middle of the floor with a desk in front of her, watching the proceedings and making sure that she has taken charge. So one, she has ordered or she would have endorsed a recount. She is very clear what the recount, what the circumstances and the conditions that are attached to that recount. And she is the one who would have been in the middle of the floor. Do you believe she's going to contemplate the introduction of any other thing that's not contemplated in that agreement that was signed by the stakeholders? I think not.
I would want to say, based on what we're seeing coming out, you might have to rethink your position there, my friend.
But let's see what happened.
It's a 33-day recount. And Lowenfield has basically said in his report to the chairman that in each district, it cannot be ascertained that the results meet the criteria of free and fair elections. The report also has tabulations for the 10 districts and a summary of the controversial observation reports. But Lowenfield has issued a verdict. He has given a verdict that is in line with PNC, with APNU AFC. Although there is no evidence, I wish to say this, although there is no evidence, and Lowenfield has not conducted an investigation, Lowenfield has tendered a conclusion that the report does not meet the criteria of free and fair elections.
If that being the case, Yog, where does that leave? Let us say that he does that. Does the order contemplate the commission to take that into consideration in arriving at their decision what to do with those figures? Is that part of the order? Is it allowed?
Well, now is when you'd be testing the mettle of the chairman, isn't it? Now is when you'll be testing the mettle of the chairman. In terms of how is she now going to look at this report? The truth is, look, I hate to say this, but the truth is, Leonard, that Lowenfield cannot. We all know he didn't conduct an investigation. Is the chairman that wrote to the Commissioner of Police, not Lowenfield? So for Lowenfield to make a decision, he's usurping. Lowenfield has just usurped the role of the chairman, and he wants to decide what to do. So I don't know. It's beyond the mind.
I think he could say whatever he wants to say. It's up to the commission. I think the issue that would be on the table is whether there's going to be an acceptance. The president has made it very clear that he speaks on behalf of the coalition, and he will accept the results of the recount. What other way? How clear than that? But in any case, there's another caller in there.
My friend, the result, if it's given in their favor, they stop short saying they will only accept a result that's given in their favor.
So it's not up to the commission; it's up to the coalition if they want to accept it or not.
Yeah, well, that's
Well,
what's
these are two
being
different
made
things,
very
right?
obvious now.
But let's see what
That's being made
happens.
obvious.
Good afternoon. I think the boys then took off the lights on me. But good day. There's a call online.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
I think I said 6 weeks ago I told you so, but I'm not saying I told you so. Today, what I'm saying is I am no authority. I am a simple security guard, so I'll make my point this way. When you observe the actions of anybody based on psychology, you can predict where they're heading. So the reason why I could have said I told you so is because based upon certain actions, there's no other way that the party could have end up going as they went last night. Secondly, one of the things that Guyanese need to remember, and I think we should have known by now, we went to school, free education up to secondary, is that when we become a signatory to UN, to the CARICOM, and all these other places that we become signatories to, it is not just a signatory to help or for convenience. It gives those people a voice and an opinion to share upon our decisions that we make, whether good or bad. So we cannot say that they have to stay silent. What we should have done is never sign on to the UN, never sign on to CARICOM and the Commonwealth and all these places. Then we could have said they have a right to shut them out. But the fact that we are members, all of these people have a right to share their views, right or wrong. So as Guyanese, we need to understand that. What I am not getting anybody understanding or seem to understanding is that we have not corrected a lot of the flaws in GCOMs over the years because it suits whoever party was in power at the time. And because it suits the party in power at the time, it has left that way. When we talk and after elections has gone on. The flaws that are there, real or not, they're there. And lastly, when it comes to Mr. Harmon, as far as I know in Guyana, he's the head of the
Ministry of the Presidency?
No, he's not the head of the presidency. He's
the
head
COVID-19
of,
task
right.
force.
So he should not be making any political statement.
But no, he's also the campaign manager. But
campaign manager is one thing.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Zir. I think this gentleman has been calling us the last couple weeks. Has been with us, and he sounds a lot better, a lot more logical than many of the politicians that we have. I'd love to see him in Parliament, but he has raised some pertinent points, and maybe you would want to address that.
But what you said is right. That's the kind of political party I want to see in Guyana,
of course,
where we can take people from all across the country. I am very interested in seeing us do that one day. Take people from all walks of life and let us represent a people's National Assembly, not a bunch of oh God. Look, I don't know what else I can say here now, Leonard, but I think Guyana is in a very, very, very deep and serious place now. I think that a couple of weeks ago, you and I said it. That call is right. It's not the time to say I told you so, but we did express very great caution. I think also, Leonard, that Lowenfield's words that he's taking to the chairman is actually going to give the chairman a bye. He's going to give the chairman a road to walk on. And so that the chairman is not going to look good or bad. She's just doing her job based on what road is being built for her.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. So we want to hear those messages on 6222222. You could send us the WhatsApp message on that. Do not call us on that, but you could call us on 226-7453. Let me see if I could read you some messages that would have been coming in from our people today. Dr. Mahadeo, this country needs to heal. How Walter Rodney death can bring us together. Be an example, Dr. Mahadeo. Gildarie, you're correct. The commission have to make a decision. Therefore, Lowenfield's report is insignificant. My opinion. Then somebody else has said their question, are no cases being reported as COVID cases? Is it because there are no cases, or is it because the testing are not being done? In the US, the virus has to take a second lap, and it's far from being under control. Good afternoon, Leonard and Yog. My comment is what I've analyzed and observed from the presidential remark on the program last night. I have had it at the back of my head that this man was not part of the circus put up by members of his party, and he was distancing himself from those atrocities. However, to my disappointment, Mr. Granger all but confirmed that he is the driver of this bus. I can therefore come to conclude that he has put his utensils to work and he's waiting for the feast. I do hope that after this election, a commission of inquiry into all these election gimmicks can be done and the truth be published for the public. Interesting one. Let me see, there's another that we could probably have here. Let me see. Good afternoon. I have a okay. Please call Sanjeev and ask him what to report. That's somebody else. So, Yog, I think there's a call online. We're gonna take a call right now. Caller, good afternoon. Good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Good evening, Yog.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Leonard.
Yes, sir. Could you lower your volume on your radio, please? Could you lower the volume on the radio?
1 second.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Yeah, what you guys always say, Yog. Good afternoon, Leonard. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very, very good show. I wrote it at the 592 show, and I got a very, very. The caller that just came. I don't want to say the same thing, but I think, like everything else, it's left in Claudette's hand to make the delivery of the results, right? And I pray that honestly it's going to be the honest decision that she will make. And don't let's jump the gun. We have our feelings, and all my Chinese brothers and sisters.
Did we lose a call there? You there, sir? We would have had a caller there from Toronto. Yog, over to you.
So, Leonard, let me just answer the concern of one of the persons who sent messages. Sir or madam, it is important. It is very important that we assess history and we deal with it. If we don't talk about Walter Rodney and who's responsible for him, we cannot heal, because then it means always you're going to have one side of people accusing the other side, oh, you're killers, or oh, you're this, or oh, you're that. So you need to assess the points in our history that would be important. We need to be open and teach our youngsters what really has happened to get us to 2020 to today. It's like Akno AFC don't want to hear you talk about Mingo at all. But you have to talk about it before you get to today. And I tell you what, next week they won't want us to talk about low and field, but we have to talk about it. The people who have held this country to be the way it is, we gotta expose, we gotta talk, we gotta discuss, and we gotta let the truth be known to everyone. So, Leonard, that would be my take on that. Walter Rodney's death, Father Dark's death, everything needs to come out, needs to be open, as well as I'm still hoping that one day we can have a room 592 where we talk about the concerns of those people who were killed, the allegations of persons killed in the past, to the article I referenced earlier.
Absolutely, Yog, and that's something that we need to do.
Mm-hmm. But Leonard, the other thing too is here on what? From here on, where do we go? We have a position where, let me put it this way. So APNO AFC steals these elections and they remain in office, right? Let me just put hypothetical scenarios. Hypothetical scenario one, APNO AFC steals these elections and they remain in office. Now what happens? On day number one, everybody, the joint opposition, is going to stay out of parliament. They're going to refuse to go into a parliament for an election that was stolen. So APNO AFC will have a dictatorship. Then day number two, the combined opposition is going to take up elections petition case to the court. Now hear what? APNO AFC can't then defend itself because it has been pointing itself to irregularities. So it means APNU AFC's evidence, so-called evidence, will now have to come into court to prove against its own government. So we have a lot of twists and turns out there, including, now we will see whether Mr. Ralph Gonzalez and Mia Motley and whoever they are, whether they are going to do anything about the words that they have said before, or whether it was just words. So those are the things that we see forthcoming if these elections are stolen.
Manners, I frighten. I mean, this is all I can tell you. I believe that the APNU are not afraid of sanctions because there's China. Guess you will still have to use, guess that what you still have to use as the USA to access China, we'll have to have intermediary banks in the US and ports. And that's something we'd have to talk about. If we have sanctions, that we could very well not have a correspondent bank to do our transactions abroad. All that is going to be blocked from this country accessing as part of the international sanctions that are more than likely to come upon us. The US, the Western countries have warned Guyana about this. The CARICOM has warned us. Commonwealth, we would have seen over to talking about that. Saw Ron Sanders a few nights back would have talked about this. So it goes on, and then we would have had Mr. Mitchell, former PM of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Sioux, would have been warning about this. So it's all coming, those statements coming from leaders and from people, representatives of our biggest partners around the world, telling us, do not walk this path. It is a narrow, it's a dangerous, it's a slippery slope that you go in. It's a point of no return. Do not do that. So, Yog, you're right. When it comes to elections, when it comes to what happens next, there's something maybe we'd have to hold a show next week to talk about that. Talk to the people. What happens in a scenario if the coalition, based on what we're seeing, do not give up power or do not accept the results? Where does that leave us? If they don't accept it and they say the GCOM says the PPP has won, and they don't accept it, that's a route that we'd have to look into what happens next. So there's a caller line. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon. Is this Culture Radio?
Yes, it is, ma'am. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay, just good afternoon, everybody. Just got to remind you all that in 1964,
yes, go ahead.
When they had a displacement of people, 3,000 people died in Linden. Where they used to hold them baby and rip them in half and throw them in the river. I kick the pregnant woman them and take out the baby from their belly. And all this nonsense with the displacing of people. And that very day, born and put for this Independence Day. The very day he declared for Independence Day in May 25th. You hear? I mean, I hear nobody talk about anything that in 1964.
Mm-hmm. And this is in Linden?
Yes, in Linden that happened.
All right. Any other comments, ma'am?
I hear you talk yesterday about if you want help, you can call in.
All right. So we take your number. You text me on 682-1256, 682-156, and we're going to take it from there. Thank you very much. So that caller there, interesting, back in the 60s, we're talking history there. Yog, you would have spoken about the WPA, about Dr. Walter Rodney. Here you have another take, history. People don't forget history. A lady would have been talking about that. I'm not sure. I don't know too much history about that. But I know that Linden was a scene of uprisings back in the 1960s, and a lot of people would have died there. But that's something we'd have to pay attention to. So there's another caller online. Caller, good afternoon, you're on the air. Caller, good afternoon, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, guys.
Yes, sir.
If they steal this election, would they get any money from any bank anywhere, the oil money? How are they going to run this country? I would like to know that, if you could highlight a little bit, or Dr. Mahadeo? Because
Yes.
this is looking very, very bad.
Yes.
Right?
And
Okay,
that's all the
let down the
question.
right. Okay then.
Thank you very much, sir. Yog, you may want to get into that.
That is, that is throwing a rock in an ocean and expect to see a ripple hitting the wave. I mean, look, sanctions are certainly going to be there, but personal sanctions. And Leonard, one cannot at this stage predicate anything. I mean, if the rest of the world are going to impose sanctions, that is something that one cannot escape from. But at the end of the day, I think what they're banking on, banking is a bad word, but one of the things that the APNU AFC people are depending on is that it's the people of the country will suffer when there are sanctions, and so humanitarian reasons might make them not impose sanctions. But at the end of the day, the world over, things have changed, and if humanitarian aid was the hallmark for the reason of not approving sanctions, Venezuela wouldn't be where it is today. There is a serious problem with Venezuela. As we know, there are a lot of refugees heading into Cambodia, I think it is. A lot coming over to Brazil and stuff like that. But Leonard, I wish to confirm, I wish to read one of the paragraphs of Mr. Lowenfield's report. Mr. Lowenfield said on paragraph 13, and I'm quoting, "Finally, the summation of anomalies and instances of voter impersonation identified in District 1 clearly does not appear to satisfy the criteria of impartiality, fairness, and compliance with provisions of the Constitution and the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 103. Consequently, on the basis of the votes counted and the information furnished from the recount, it cannot be ascertained that the results of the District 1 Barima Waini meet the standard of fair and credible elections." That is official. That is what his report, reads like. The ascertainment of he has taken upon himself, and Lowenfield has basically, by using these words, he is saying that he has investigated and he has done his checks and balances, and he cannot give us make a call on these elections to the commission. So I think at this stage he is abdicating his responsibilities. He has walked aside from what that is expected of him by law, and he has told the chairman, he has flipped his finger to the chairman and say, "I don't have to tell you anything. I'm just giving you my opinion."
Legally, let's look at it legally. That's interesting. What you are reading there is the first time that Guyana would be hearing, and this is coming via Kaito News, in the public, what some of the excerpts of this report by Keith Lowenfield, Chief Elections Officer, to the GCOM, to the Guyana Elections Commission, to the commissioners on the various regions or districts, the 10 districts in Guyana based on the recount. And what you were saying there, Yog, is that for the little knowledge that I have, is that the chief elections officer is telling is officially telling GCOM that I've taken a certain position based on the evidence that I've seen before me. Now the question to you, and I think the question on the minds of the people of Guyana, is GCOM obligated to take this into consideration because he is the chief elections officer?
Okay, so he is the chief elections officer, and I wish to go back to the order. So the order specifies what the chief elections officer has to do. The order does not say, "Tell us what you think of these results. Tell us what you think of it." Nobody is interested in what the CEO thinks. And look, let's listen to this. The CEO, the chief elections officer, has made a report on his own performance, has made a report that he probably took bribe from somebody and he closed his eyes and he let this election run the way it is. So the bus is going to run over him too. What he has done is indict himself What he has done is say he is guilty for running an election for which he cannot make a declaration. And that has to be remembered, because if Lowenfield is allowed to give an opinion on the count, it means Lowenfield has been giving an opinion on himself and his performance, and that he took bribe or he took something. But it is clear that in writing such a report, he has some horse in the game. He has something in this game.
Well, I would have to make a decision as your boss, Yog, and you, the chief elections officer, that you're going to be fired. You took $8 billion of my money, and you decide to run an election. You did not do a good job. You are going to be fired, and you're going to be investigated, and you're probably going to be charged.
But that's my point, Leonard. Fired and investigated. Tomorrow morning or next day or the other day, he gone.
That is interesting.
What has happened from politicians in this country, whichever side they're on, I really don't care. But we have not held them accountable for some of their treasonous acts upon this nation.
If we get a call based on those excerpts that you would have read from the report of Keith Lowenfield, if you to make a call as to what the play is from the coalition, what would Dr. Yog Mahadeo say?
If I were to, you will see it in a matter of minutes, if not within an hour or so. You are going to see. I predict Mr. Harman might come out and say, well, it's clear you have to annul these elections. Chairman has to annul these elections. And that's going to be the mantra for the next 24 hours, that if the CEO is saying so, not realizing every time, if Mr. Harman comes out and accepts Lowenfield report, he's accepting authorship. He is accepting being part of this. He is also accepting that Lowenfield did a bad job, and Lowenfield himself probably was paid off by somebody. He's also accepting that. So we got to be careful, and they ought to be careful because the world is watching. I want to say this to you. Somebody just texted me and asked me if saying treasonous is not too harsh, whether it's criminal intent. But I want to say this to you. GCOM presently is the one authority, is a constitutional authority that has this country, this nation at its fingertips, playing us like a fiddle. Mr. Lowenfield, if he could say that now, it means on March the 2nd, he knew exactly what was the state of play. They have been playing us like a fiddle. Mr. Lowenfield has been playing us. You know what is the meaning of treasonous? Betraying one's country for 100 odd days. You knew, Mr. Lowenfield, if you were saying that these elections were fraudulent, for 100 days you knew that, and you never said a word. That is being treasonous to your country.
So if you're now joining us, this is Elections COVID-19 Watch, myself, Leonard Gildarie, and Dr. Yog Mahadeo bringing you. And if you have missed it, major developments now. The report of Keith Lowenfield, Chief Elections Officer, the Guyana Elections Commission, is out. He has given it to the chair of the Guyana Elections Commission, Justice Retired Claudette Singh. And we have gotten excerpts of that. If you want to say exclusive look at what has been coming out there. And what he's saying, he's already casting questions or blame on the elections of March 2nd, and saying that it was there are lots of things that went wrong with it. And there's somebody who would have texted us, and I must read this out, Yog. It is somebody from overseas, I think somewhere in the U.S. Gentlemen, Mr. Lowenfield's job was to summarize a number of votes and observation reports. He cannot issue his personal biased opinion. That is a decision of the courts to decide if the elections were free and fair. Lowenfield's report is a basis for him to be fired immediately. That is coming from the U.S., somebody who's looking at us. Let me see. Let us just go on here. Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. The finding of the Linden Mascara in 1964, my grandfather was living there at that time. Say my grandmother was pregnant at the time, the trampoline. They tramped the baby out of her. That was with regards to talking with Linden there. But let's get right back into this major breaking news of what you would have had there been reading from the excerpts of the report, which we've been able to get some access to. This is an indication very clearly as to some of the openings that the coalition would have to refute or to take another approach out of this recount, which has given the opposition, the People's Progressive Party, the presidency. It is saying very clearly that they could come out now and argue that the elections were far from being free and fair.
Well, they are, as I said, I'm repeating myself, they are going against their own words. I wish to tell you that I have a couple documents here with me. This document here, Leonard, is very aged, very, very old. It's falling apart, but it's the Wismar disturbances of 1964. It's an official report of and maybe one day we'll have to go into this in detail so that viewers and listeners can have details of those things. Coming back to the elections, Leonard, the one thing I can say to our brothers and sisters out there, and I wish to say this very, very openly, look, while the games are taking place in GCOM and continue to take place, and we know that GCOM has been political and has been biased. I must say this to everyone: let us not let us be very, very mature. Let us allow the politicians to create a political solution. Let us not allow the politicians to make us as a people hate each other. Whatever is happening must not be the reason for us to come out hating each other. Let's hate the wrongdoers. Let's not hate each other. Let us not be used for any action, for any sharing of hate, any sharing of anything, regardless of who they are. Do like what we are doing here, ladies and gentlemen. Openly discuss, agree to disagree, but nothing more than that. Let us ensure that we retain calmness, maturity for the next couple of days.
A few weeks ago, video from the United States of America hit the internet and went viral very quickly. There was a knees on the back of a gentleman that sparked riots in the United States. Several states, the guards had to be called, the National Guards. Guyana today, we would have to ask whether the knees are on the backs of the people. And this is a question that is going to be coming up back and forth, and not only from one side, but from all sides, because we've allowed, and we've said it before, we've allowed the tail to wag the dog. There's a caller on line. Caller, good afternoon, you're in the air. Caller, good afternoon, you're in the air.
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. How y'all do?
Pretty good, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you something, how the way I feel. I feel hurt, I feel pain, I feel rejected, I feel that somebody stole something from me to know what's going on in this country. Look how we're punishing. Look how we care about our children's future. We don't know what's going to outcome of their future. This country and our children's future is in Miss Claudette's hand. She needs to get up, rise up, and do the right thing. She don't know because of her she damaging this country. Keith Lowenfield, he's a waste of a CO in that GCOM. He is a waste. He's not coming out with nothing, honestly, what in that report there. So since 2020, the 2nd of March, it wasn't a fraud election. Now he have to give a report. And he turned and said the election wasn't a fair election. Keith Lowenfield, put your act together. You're damaging this country. And it is unfair for a handful of people who want the benefit of this country, and we got to face the consequence for it. It is not fair, and we need to rise up and do what we got to do. It's overbearing now. We can't take it anymore. We care about our children's future. Let Keith Lowenfield go on the road and walk and misguided sing and see the pain and hurts of these people in this country here. They're not getting to eat. She hold this country has a ransom, and I plead into her and I beg into her. Do the right thing, Miss Carter Singh, if you're hearing my voice. Do the right thing, I'm begging you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the right thing. And here's a question or a comment coming from one of the listeners or viewers. In the event that the report is completely ignored and the chairman chooses to swear in Irfan, after this, the applicant can still be granted a conservatory order, this is by the court, to ensure that the swearing does not happen unless the chancellor immediately swears in the president in waiting, and then that order can be granted. But they have no grounds to not swear in, Dr. Ali. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got that, Yog?
Yes. Let me put it this way. Article 177. As long as GCOM declares, don't forget, as long as GCOM declares 177 is over, done with, president is sworn in. The chancellor has no place to give an opinion that will second the thing. There can be orders, there can be conservatory orders, there can be other injunctions and other things that can be held to delay a swearing in. But as long as GCOM declares, 177 establishes that the president is the president, deemed the president by virtue of the numbers. As long as GCOM swear in, that's it. Because 177 only says or only allows that he is deemed president, and thereafter GCOM has to so swear in. So what Lowenfield has done here, Lowenfield has skirted the issue by giving his opinion. So Lowenfield is not wanting to say, and we'll have to get more of the report to get into it, but Lowenfield has to advise GCOM as a three-part process of 177. 3 parts in 177. 177, don't forget, says that he is deemed president, says that the CEO must give such an advice, and says that the commission shall so declare upon the CEO advice. So number 2, which is the CEO's advice now, or the CEO's report, is where the chess moves are being made.
Absolutely. If you're now joining us, Elections COVID-19 Watch here on Kaicho Radio 99.9, 99.1, 99.5. You could also get us on Kaicho Radio on YouTube, on Facebook, or Kaicho News Online. There's radio icon there. Click it and you're going to get onto us. And so we have 226-7453. You could call us on that, or you could WhatsApp us on 6222222, or you could text us on that 6222222 or 226-7453. Yog, I want to ask you this because it is very clear now. Let's say GCOM, the commission now, takes a decision that they're not going to pay attention to what Lowenfield says, and they're going to go ahead and go with what the recount says and move to swear in Irfan Ali. The coalition refuses. I'm talking scenarios here. What happens then? What are we likely to see?
Well, the hypothetical, you're talking, yes, scenarios, you're talking hypothetical outcomes. Yes, one is that the PNC, look, let me be very clear here. This is the PNC. APNU, AFC, PNC, whatever you want to call them. I ain't got no time to waste with them verbiage anymore. But the truth is that they can stay in office, and they can say, and this is scenario we're talking about, hypothetical things. Yes, they could say, well, we want to protect those persons who voted for us, so we're going to stay in office, and you do what you want. So then you have a dictatorship. You have, what can the opposition do? It means everybody status quo has suddenly been removed, and yeah, it becomes a dictatorship. It becomes a military, not military, but of course the military will now have to decide. The military will now have to decide whether it will stay on the side of a dictatorship. People who see, really it is that you're seizing power. You're seizing power that is not granted by the ballot. And if you seize power not granted by the ballot, can the army then expect you to back such seizure of power? So those are the anomaly. Those are the hypothetical cases you could look at. I would rather think that, you see, this is where I get upset at Claudette Singh. And Leonard, Madam Claudette Singh told the media, or however she said it, she don't like criticism. She don't like when people come down hard on her. She don't like this. She don't like that. Who cares what she likes anymore? You can call and beg and scream and cry and do whatever about her doing the right thing. It's the same thing we were hoping that Lowenfield would do the right thing. What is the right thing? The right thing is depending on who's paying them. The right thing is depending on whose side they have taken. In their mind, that is what they define as the right thing. So this thing about Claudette Singh not liking criticism or not, why should we call on her to do the right thing? She has this report that Lowenfield presented to her. Leonard, if you or I were chairman, this report would immediately be released to the public. Why are you getting bits and pieces coming out? It must immediately be released to the public. Let the public make their decision to either support you, Claudette Singh, to make you go down in history as a sane, sober, and righteous chairman, or the other way around. Whatever way it is, we see from March 4th how one political party did every dance you could think of. All kind of voodoo videos you are seeing sharing on Facebook. Yesterday I heard people, I heard myself, I was shocked to hear this. Two men who represents a party using state assets on their party platform, calling for some bolt of lightning to strike one of the political persons. That is what we are paying you to do as a person who's earning taxpayers' money. You know, so this is the kind of depravity that this country has gone into. And yes, we can be righteous and call on chairman to do the right thing, but she has to do the legal thing. She has to do and follow the law, full stop. CEO has said here, Lowenfield has said, screw the law. I am not going to follow the law. I am not going to follow the order. I don't care what you think. Now, let's see whether the Iron Lady will be the Iron Lady or the straw that swings towards where the wind is blowing.
Well, we'll see. And I think I'm putting my money on the Iron Lady. Gentlemen, good day. If a manager is in charge of an operation and a subordinate staff submits a report to that manager saying that the operation is not credible, then if that manager accepts that report, then the manager will have to take all the blame for the failure of the operation. That manager should be held accountable for the waste of the time, labor, and money. Is it not the job of the observers to say whether the election is credible? Power is cloth in legitimacy becomes authority. Some nice statements there. Yog, any comments?
Yes. Look, at the end of the day, maybe it's all we can do, right? To say hold Lowenfield responsible, hold Mingo responsible. But brothers and sisters, hold them responsible while Guyana becomes the laughingstock of the world. Slap them on the wrist while people are dying out there in the field. Because what's going to happen? Over the next 2-3 years, we don't have money. The treasury is already empty. It's going to get worse. We'll print money. Basically, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make our own revenues. Don't care about what's the exchange rate anymore. Hoping the oil money is going to be released. And guess what? The only source of revenues for the government is taxes. So people will have to expect more taxes. But to say, hold him responsible, hold a manager responsible, you think put it this way, as we the same Creole is, you think them K?
You're a very gloomy person. There's a caller on the line. You're very gloomy. There's a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. You're a very gloomy person. There's a caller. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, good afternoon to you, gentlemen. Dr. Yog and Mr. Gildarie.
Yes, sir.
Keep up the good work. A very good program. I've been listening to this program for the past, I think it's almost 3 months or over. Very, very good program. First of all, Mr. Gildarie, I want to correct you with that. You said earlier that Mr. Granger said that he will accept the results of the recount. That is not so. Mr. Granger said he will accept any declaration coming from GCOM chairman. He never said he will accept the results of the recount. Now, that is just a correction for you, Mr. Gildarie.
Thank you.
Look, I have said this in the past, and I'll say it again. This whole thing with GCOM, look, when this results thing with not this results, Mr. Mingo declaration, right? Mr. Mingo declaration and all the problem that's caused in this country with people and everything, the chairman of GCOM, the CEO, they are in possession of, or let me say they were in possession of the SOPs. All of that could have stopped if the chairman been standing up for what is right. Instead of recount and all this problem, she could have said, look, this is the SOPs, and my SOP is saying that Mr. Mingo is wrong, and this is it, and avoid all this long 33 days plus 134 recount, and all that money that had to spend on people and this and that. She is responsible for what is going on. Mr. Lewis, they knew, they got a plan. Now let me go a bit further. I want you to listen to this good. They take a long time, I think it's nearly a month to decide on this recount and the way forward with it. That time that they took there is with the coalition. They come up with a plan. How they go, because they know Mr. Mingo thing didn't match. So they decide how they have to go about this thing, forget it, for thing. And this is how they decide to go. They didn't want to live stream and see people's face who going to object to this foolish objection or allegation, what they call it. They didn't want to let people face and all that too. She said she wanted to do it, she will allow transparency, and the only way she will allow the audio feed and all of that. But they come up with this plan to do it like that, and the objection is not only APNU come up with that. That comes from GCOM. That comes from Mr. Lloyd Field. Well, that is my own mind telling me that. And this is what you have to do. And we're going to say that this election is void and null. That is a plan. And everybody, I don't know, I hear people saying that she's going to do the right. She's not going to do the right thing. People are saying, Lloyd Field do the right thing. All he has to do, look, when she make that declaration, it's going to shock Diana. I mean, not me, because I know what is to expect. All of them on APNU is the same thing. You know, I heard the opposition leader saying that don't say this and those. We have to say that. She could avoid all those long days and nights and all of these things by bringing the SOP to the table, but they are siding. They're siding with APNU, and they're thieving this election. It's already thing. The result that's going to come, the declaration, my friends, it's going to be, people are going to cry. I do hope the international community could come in and make a difference with this Granger gang, this Granger cabal, because you know what the thing is haunting me most? There are people, religious people, who call in the name of the Lord and say this about Granger. God do not tolerate foolishness and lies and thief. And what is happening there is a sad situation. And a lot of people are aware of this. He did not say nothing that he will accept the results of the recount. He said he will accept any declaration that the chairman is made. And he saw the 33,000 people and change that voted for the PDP, voted him out of office, and he's still sitting there waiting. What you waiting for, Mr. Granger? You're a big man. You're an old man. You lost this election. You did foolishness in this country. You deceived a lot of people with your sweet beak. Telling people you're going to do this and a good life. And so this good life is only for your friends and your family. It's got to stop. Guyanese will not tolerate you up there, sitting in the sycamore tree. You got to come down. Come down. Come down.
Thank you very much.
But thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, dear. Yog, a lot of emotions. Somebody here from Trinidad, before I ask you to come in, somebody here from Trinidad have been following all the programs during the day in room 592 at the evenings here from Trinidad. Yog, do you have a report from Region 4 where Mingo was in charge? Over to you, Yog, with regards to that gentleman in Trinidad.
No, I just I got privy to District 6, which is Region 6, and that reads the same thing that Mr. Lowenfield says. The summation of anomalies and instances of voter impersonation identified in District 6 does not appear to satisfy the criteria of impartiality, fairness, and compliance with provisions of the Constitution. Consequently, on the basis of the votes counted and information furnished from the recount, it cannot be ascertained that the results of District 6 East Berbice quarantine meets the criteria of fair and credible elections. I don't have anything for District 4 as yet.
Yes, Yog, in the meantime, before we go back to the lines, there's a text here from somebody, it seems to be from Region 9. Good afternoon, Yog and Leonard. Is there any assistance for the people in Lethem? It's been almost 3 months and no help has been received yet. And the RCCI, I think this is the Rupununi Chamber of Commerce, are talking about closing the borders for another 3 months. Now there's no money in the treasury. How will the people who are in salary survive? Not forgetting the small man who live on a day-to-day basis. Please call on the authorities for us to help us as concerned citizens. Yog, and so you hear these stories coming out every single day. Yesterday, I think a couple of days
Leonard,
back. Yes, sir.
Leonard, I think unfortunately there is this serious issue. The caller, the person from Region what? Region 9?
Region 9, Yog.
Yeah, the person from Region 9, I think we feel the person's pain because Region 9 is remote from far away from Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we reach out to them? But here is what. If the task force, remember the task force doesn't even have a limited budget. The COVID task force. If they could not have reached out to the people of Region 9, man, I don't know. I really don't know because it is becoming worrying that under a national health emergency, we have not been reaching out to people. Leonard, on the other side too, I wish to quickly point this out. It's easy for us all to get emotional about the reports coming out there. Now, I want to call publicly through this Kaicho radio. I want to call on all the returning officers, all the district officers, all the persons that GCOM employed in Region 6. If you are hearing me, ladies and gentlemen, come out, approach the police station, go to the courts, do the right thing. But you need to identify yourself because Mr. Lowenfield just accused all of you to say you allowed impersonation, you allowed things to happen in your polling booths. Lowenfield has said in his report for Region 6, he has used the word impersonation. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been polling officers, if you who have been GCOM employees, your CEO just said that you committed fraud. And you now need to speak out. And I think that is what has to happen here, Leonard, because if Lowenfield is going to throw all of his employees under the bus, it's time for his employees to speak out. Let us know who has really thrown Guyana under the bus.
Thank you very much for that. Yog, before we go to the lines again, do we have any other excerpts from the report of Kate Lowenfield that maybe we could share? Or
Not
it's
as
coming
yet.
out? It's coming out.
I'm monitoring. Not as yet.
Thank you very much. So let's bring the people up to speed again.
I can tell you this, that the reports we're getting are coming from the APNU camp, coming from APNU supporters, not from any other side. So it seems like the report has been released to one set of persons.
That's an interesting observation statement coming from Dr. Yog Mahadeo. In the meantime, thank you for joining us here on Elections COVID-19 Watch. We're coming to you on 99.5, 99.1 FM, right across the coastlands here. And of course, you could get us on Kaicho Radio, YouTube. You could get Kaicho Radio on YouTube and on Facebook, as well as Kaicho News Online. Please also call us on 226-7453, 226-7453, or 6222222. You could send us text, WhatsApp on that. So our lines are open. We want to hear from you what is happening in your area or what you think of the developing situation. We want to hear also from you on the COVID-19 situation, how it's affecting you. So let's hear them. Let's hear the lines ringing. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Lost that one. So, Yog, in the meantime, big major headlines here on Kaichur News. Guyana can withstand the fire of the entire global community, warns Owen Arthur. There's a former Barbadian PM. His statements would come out hours after another statement there by Ralph Gonzalez of the St. Vincent and Grenadines, and that's a leader. And he is saying that Guyana should not be walking that road. Guyana has to pay attention to the recount results and adhere to it. Granger falsely claims coalition's allegations caused recount. Make no mention of Mingo's fraud. Headline in Kaichur News. Former Bajan PM warns defense incoming CARICOM chair. Harman has no authority to speak. He's out of order. And then, of course, Eyes of the World on Claudette Singh. Some major headlines ahead of that delivery of the report of Chief Elections Officer Kate Lowenfield. That report was released this morning to the chair, we understand. It has probably not made its way yet to the commissioners, the other commissioners. It has made its way in some circles, it seems, in the opposition the coalition coalition supporters' hands, and it's been released, excerpts of it to the people, to selected persons. Go ahead,
and Leonard, let me just respond to one of our viewers online, Gerald Phillips, who's asked us to call on the returning officers from Lower East Coast Demerara to explain what they did with all of the documents from the 41 ballot boxes. Mr. Gerald Phillips, we know exactly where those documents are. We have videos of the persons in Ashman Buildings with the envelopes in their hands. We know exactly where they are. Mr. Lowenfield knows where they are. He said they were in his possession. He said they were in his possession and that he had stored them at Collingen. We know exactly where the documents are. So Mr. Lowenfield can now have convenient memory lapses, but the world knows the videos are there.
I want to read this other one here, and this is something for you, Yog, not for me. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Leonard and Mr. Yog. You guys have been doing a great job. I've begun referring to you as the guardians of democracy. I like the idea of people coming together and forming a movement that is impartial to represent all Guyanese. Whether you're ready, call me up. I'd love to be part of that movement. Please continue the good work. God bless you both. Let me repeat what we've been saying, what I have been saying over the last couple of weeks.
Leonard, I need 2 minutes off here.
Yes, thank you very much, Yog. So in the meantime, while Yog is taking a break to do something very urgent, let me bring you up to speed on some other things that is going to happen. Tomorrow, we're trying to hold a 592 program in the evening. Yog, I think, is doing something with that, so he has to make some arrangements. So in the meantime, we're going to tell you a little more about that, whether it has been possible. It's going to be day 2 of the report being handed over to the GCOM chair, and of course, if you have been following the elections 2020 very closely, you would know that Guyana has done a national recount. It lasted 33 days, and that's the national recount of the March 2nd elections. The recount results have been made known to the entire country. It is saying that the coalition has lost the presidency and the People's Progressive Party, which lost the 2015 elections. They are going to return based on the recount figures. However, it's not out of the woods yet for the Guyanese people. The coalition is saying that they were major fraud in the electoral process, a process on March 2nd which was deemed free and fair and above board by observers and local and overseas and others. The coalition is saying now, based on the recount, that they are seeing several things that has gone wrong, and therefore the chief elections officer, who has been criticized heavily as his management of the post-election process, he's coming out and say that Region 1 especially, that's part of the report that we have gotten our hands on, that Region 1, there are problems there, and therefore he cannot endorse that it was free and fair in that particular area. Yog is back. Yog, so before we go to the lines once again, let me ask you, we have a couple of days. What kind of pressure is it? Do you believe, let me put it this way, do you believe that our commissioners and our politicians has an understanding, if they decide to go contrary to where the decisions are and what they should be doing based on those decisions, whether they have a clear understanding of what this is going to do to their legacy when the history books of
They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. We don't even have to go there. Let me tell you this. Excuse me. I think 3 weeks ago, you and I on the same show, we mentioned something. I wish to harken back to that. It is the same. Did we really, let's assess something, did we really expect different from Lowenfield? Let's assess something. It is the same Lowenfield that prepared a report knowing that Mingo's declarations were fraudulent. He still prepared a report on March the 14th, ready to submit that report to the commission. It is the same Lowenfield that decided, notwithstanding all the evidence of a fraud happening in front of him, he still prepared a report on March the 14th. Same Lowenfield, did we really expect him to, as we say in Guyana, do the right thing? In his mind, the right thing is only one thing to do, and that is to back one side. That has been his modus operandi from day one. I think what people were hoping is that Lowenfield would have to realize that if he go down the road he's going, he is outside of the law. He is acted on his own because the law, the order does not allow him to do what he did. He has basically said, and I wish to reiterate, he basically has said he conducted an investigation. There was no investigation. It was the chairman who wrote to the commissioner of police. There was no investigation. Lowenfield has decided on his own to give an opinion to the chairman. So Leonard, did you expect, let me ask you, mano a mano, did you expect Lowenfield to do anything different?
Mano a mano? No.
Well, so he did exactly what is the right thing according to Lowenfield's description. So we got to look at that. I had to go off air to basically confirm something because, when I'm looking at these words here, I'm taking aback at the words of Mr. Lowenfield, and it is confirmed that these reports coming out are factual in terms of Lowenfield's verbiage that he has used. And that's why I had to go off for a couple of seconds. But certainly, Leonard, we have to continue to assess this. To now expect Claudette Singh to do what we are saying, guys, is the right thing. I think Claudette Singh stood out with distinction when she gave an affidavit to Roxanne George that she is going to have this recount done. So she did go against the grain once. Let us now see how she is going to treat this report and whether she is going to become bogged down by what is not required in a report or not.
Thank you very
And
much,
Patrick,
Andaziz.
Patrick Ramcharan, sir, I am calling you out. Do not say that. If you need to talk about things like that, get off our airways. We are not going to condone any action that is not in the ambit of law. Please, sir, be mature.
Thank you very much, and keep the discussions free and fair. Keep the discussions above board in a mature manner. We are going to delete you. The management has been monitoring what has happened, and there's I would say because our people have been generally very good to us, Yog, and I must say thank you very much, listeners and viewers. You guys have been very respectful. There's been 1-2 cases, so management says block them, because remember, we're being monitored here by the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority. We don't want to get in trouble with them, so make sure that you keep us in line. You have to keep yourself in line too. Yog and Gildarie, pleasant good afternoon to you. As I lie in my sofa and listen to you guys, I cry. I hope and I pray that Madam Chair do what is best for our blessed country. Yog, anytime it comes to elections, I get nervous and stressful because my Aja and my partner lost their houses in the 60s in Farm Maikoni, and my partner never ever was able to get back a good life. I would like you to read out my message, please. Thank you, and good evening. God bless you all. And so we want to say hello to that lady, that person who would have sent us this message. And so there are many stories like this that has been coming out. And good afternoon, Yog. I'm looking forward to the program since the election nonsense started. Say you guys have been doing a good job. GCOM and APNO, why put the cat to look over the milk? I'm so ashamed to see what is happening again. I feel the chair will do the right thing. I think there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yog Mahadeo and Mr. Leonard Gildarie.
Yes, sir.
Pleasant good afternoon to you guys.
Good afternoon.
I would like to tell you guys thanks, because for the hard work and me sitting down there so long discussing about the election and the COVID-19. I must tell you guys thanks very much. And I was listening to you and Mr. Irfan last night, Mr. Gildarie, and I really appreciate the amount of questions you had asked the president, and some valuable questions, because the president had some nice ideas in his mind that he planned to run this country with. And I have been giving the PPP my support, and I was very surprised to hear Mr. Irfan talk like that last night. But I have a question for Mr. Yog, and if he's hearing me clearly, could you please tell me?
Yes, he's hearing you very clearly. Go ahead, sir.
The question is, if there are a court matter in the court, and with two parties, and the complainant dies, does the matter remain in the court, or does the matter withdraw from the court, and does, if any penalty could be attached to the person who died? Because, why I ask the question, the matter with Mr. Nandalal that he went over the contempt of court with Mingo the other day there, I see that he had to pay Mr. Mingo $400,000. Now, my law, or the law that I learned, is that when a party dies, the matter is being withdrawn from the court because a party has passed away. You cannot get evidence from a dead man, but it seems like APNU or the judicial system presently have a big problem with dead people, right? And I can't see why they had imposed $400,000 on a dead man that don't die and everything done. So I want to know if Yog studied the same law with Nanadal or Neil Boston, then do a different law. I don't understand how that come about there. And this is real I pass. I listen to matter when you little more them file the injunction to block the recount. right? And Neil Boston stood up and said that, what? This is a landmark case, my honor. Why should I pay money it should have left as a landmark? But nonetheless said that for the compensation for prepare the case and so, right? If he could give $1 million, he said no, he can't afford $1 million. He would pay 500,000. He had to pay nonetheless 500,000, and that was fair because they took PPP to court.
Mm-hmm.
Now the nonetheless had to pay $400,000 for a dead man. How that could be fair? And people in the country are watching what Lowenfield and Craddock Singh and these guys doing, and it's very unfair to know that PPP have won the election. It's not Chinese attack or Dutch attack, PPP won the election. And everybody, the whole world know PPP won. Only GCOM and apparently APNU, them not know that PPP win. Only APNU know APNU win. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zir. And the Guyanese people speaks. Before I hand it over to you, Yog, this fiasco, according to one of the persons listening in a text to us, this is equivalent to when a woman decides to leave a man and that man refused to accept the woman's decision. Over to you, Yog.
Yes, Leonard. With regards to the call just now, sir, Mr. Nandalal would have dealt in depth in room 592, I think 2 days ago, with that contempt of court matter. And I would not want to comment outside of what he said. I think he covered all of these grounds, so we can go back to it. Leonard, I just want to say this. I said something a couple minutes ago that I wish to repeat, but in another vein. All of the ROs, all of the POs, the returning officers, polling officers, and so forth, of all the polling districts, all the booths, all of it, I think they need to come out, because here is what will happen. If what Mr. Lowenfield says is true, Leonard, I wish to share this with you. I am talking as a citizen of Guyana. I am not a member of any political party. I am saying so as a citizen of Guyana. If what Mr. Lowenfield says it is true, that all of these things happened under his watch, and that his returning officers and his polling officers supervised the successful carrying out of a huge fraud, I will want to ensure every one of those returning officers, every one of those polling officers, they must go to jail. They must all face jail time, because if what Lowenfield says is true, it means those 10,000 people that supervise these elections, they must all go to jail for holding this country at ransom and for putting us all down the road. This is not just one man anymore, and this is why I've called on all those polling officers, all those returning officers, all those agents. If there was never a time before to speak out, now is the time, because Mr. Lowenfield just put all of you in jail. He has just said all of you have committed fraud, have supervised fraud, and therefore it is time we, the taxpayers of this country, are going to ensure that all of you who have conducted this fraud are thrown into jail. This country cannot afford to let the perpetrators of fraud, whether it's Lowenfield or it's Lowenfield's employees, to go unscathed, to go without repercussions.
I don't like jail. Good afternoon, Leonard and Yog. Great job in the program. I'm a student, and the more I watch this election situation, the more I worry not only about myself, but my fellow students. Any major misstep by GCOM which can lead to a dictatorship in my Guyana can lead to a horrible future for me, all my friends, and all children in Guyana. Therefore, my plea to the chairman is that please, for the children of Guyana, do the right thing. Thank you. I think there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller, you on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air.
Good afternoon, Leonard and Theo.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very disturbed and become very worried at this time now when I listen to Dr. Yo giving out the report from the CHO for Region 6. But I want to say to Dr. Yo, I agree with him. When we are saying that those returning officers and agents should be sent to jail, I want Mr. Lowenfield to hear me if he's hearing it. He is the first one to be jailed. He is the first one to be found guilty because he was appointed there and paid to make sure that the election was fair and free. And from since March the 2nd, Lowenfield has been fraudulent and is try to rig and to thief the election. We will not expect Lowenfield to give GCOM a good report, but we trust that Cladit Singh will do the right thing for this country. This country has been all hostile for too long, and we Guyanese must not sit up and allow Lowenfield to do his crap and nonsense. We will not take it, Leonard and Dr. Yosefat. We will not take it. He's the first one to be jailed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, there. Yog, so I think we try and, before I hand over to you, I have some good news for some our loyal people who have been with us yesterday, yourself and myself and Kaicho Radio, Kaicho News, Glenn Lal. I don't want to say hello to my publisher, Glenn Lal, and the owner of the Kaicho Radio and his family. If you're listening, a good day to you. So we would have given out a couple of hampers as a care packages to a couple of people. There's three more that we have available, yo. So yesterday we're gonna do the same thing as you advise, yo. Text us on 6222222, and we're gonna look at the stories and let us see whether we can't bless you up this day. And we want to do that. We want to make life a little better. We're trying to see whether there's a couple of things that we could work along with a couple of other organizations so we could help in our own little way. So Yog 6222222, we would have had some very terrible stories coming out from some people who would have come forward. To tell you, a couple of days back, there was a distribution done, and in the line there was even a headmistress there. The situation is really, really bad in some places, and they're not afraid. Teachers, headmistresses, and you see many others, policemen, women, single moms, people who really getting it bad. People that I knew, you would never expect them to be part of lines, but they come in and they're asking for help, and they're not ashamed. They're coming out. So over to you. Maybe you could tell us a little about whether we're gonna have a room 592 tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we will certainly share the information. We're working towards it. If the situation continues to be where people must be informed and people must continue to have the opinion of leaders and everybody else, then we are certainly looking towards putting together some persons who can do some analysis of what is coming out. By tomorrow night, certainly a lot of the Lowenfield reports would be out. Don't forget, everyone, that the reports we have gotten so far would be the summaries of Lowenfield's observation report. The observation report. We all know already what the numbers are. We all know exactly how the recount numbers have played out to be. But Lowenfield, in summarizing the observation report, has offered his personal opinion. Leonard, if I may quickly do this, because a couple of our viewers are asking, well, what do we feel are the next steps? And that is exactly what we want to discuss in room 592 tomorrow if we manage to put it together, because it is important that we have mature and impartial discussion if we are going to have a discussion tomorrow night. I'm working on it, and I'll share the information as you will, as I'm sure. But what are the next steps? Let us take a step back. Lowenfield has to prepare and summarize the observation report. Lowenfield has no space in which to give a personal opinion. That is not required under the law, and he was only supposed to summarize the report. Let us just say that he has done his observation report and he has given it to the commission. The commission will now have to sit, meet, discuss, and have to now tell Lowenfield to probably prepare a final report upon which the commission is going to make a declaration. It is the opinion of a lot of the educated people we've spoken to. Let me repeat that. It is the opinion of a lot of educated people we spoke to that has said that GCOM has to has to give a declaration. GCOM has no space in law in which it cannot make a declaration. You and I have discussed certain things today as to hypothetical cases, but those I wish to remind everyone, they're hypothetical cases. They are not ifs, they're not what ifs, they're not in any way projecting what's going to happen in the next few days. In the next few days, Claudette Singh would have to determine how she treats with Lowenfield report. Also, we're anticipating the observer report. Remember, Leonard, that the observer team, local observer teams have been in that room too. So I've asked the local observer teams to join us. I'm asking a lot of the political parties to join us as well, maybe Monday night, to have an open discussion on what are the next steps. But I'm looking forward to tomorrow night to see whether we can have a frank, open discussion on the political scenario and the hypothetical things that might come up.
Thank you very much for that, Yog, and we'll head to the lines in a few moments. I want to say thank you very much, GPL, for visiting us here. My guys are standing around. I think Kevin is the one who made the call to GPL for that, let them cut the power. So we have some darkness in the studio. Fortunately, we have a mini backup system. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, but thank you very much to GPL for that. In the meantime, Yog, so while we're doing that, is there another caller that we could take there? Yes. Good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Yes, I call back now. Here, I can't hear Yog saying that. That is true. Lowenfield is guilty right now because he's the one who they say that you could take 156 days or 57 days to count. And all those officers that he's calling and said that they're guilty, Yog is right. They should come up now and bring out everything and get Lowenfield to answer to the court, and they get some jail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. In the meantime, we're looking at some of the messages that is coming in on 6222222. Here's one of them. GCOM, well, I presume this is a CEO here. GCOM CEO has to go to jail. It's not the employees. The employees follow GCOM procedures. That's coming from one of the viewers, listeners. I pray every day for Mr. Ali to be sworn in. This is from another one. I'm here. Okay, let me see. Good afternoon, you gentlemen. As a Guyanese, I'm totally embarrassed and ashamed of our current situation. The recount brought out the fraud of those responsible. Now we have seen Lowenfield discrediting the work of all those GCOM staff. Lowenfield's pronouncement is irrelevant. It is clear he don't know his place and responsibilities. Over to you, Yog.
I certainly hope APNO AFC is going to make a statue of Lowenfield and put him up somewhere in the country, because he has certainly done what they wanted to do. But I wish to reiterate a position, Leonard, as against the caller just now. Look, Lowenfield's report, sir, states that his returning officers and his polling officers acted outside of their remit. So at this stage, Lowenfield is basically saying that his returning officers and his polling officers, they all took bribe, they all did wrong, and Leonard, let me say this, if Justice Claudette Singh accepts this report and even discusses this report and signs it off, it means all those returning officers and all those agents and all of them, they gotta face the full brunt of the law. It can't be Lowenfield right and they are also right. It gotta be either Lowenfield is wrong and they are right, or they are wrong and Lowenfield is right. Both can't be doing their jobs. One set of persons has had to fail in their jobs. It gotta be Mr. Flash Drive was right to do what he did, or Lowenfield was right. So they all got to now speak out, and the devil or devils will have to be identified. And I hope when they make the statue, it's not using taxpayers' money.
So I thank you for that, Yog Mahadeo. Elections, COVID-19, what we would have been with you since 1:30, and what we've been telling you is some major developments. A report of Keith Lowenfield, Chief Elections Officer, was submitted, and this is of the recount 2020. Elections 2020 would have been submitted to the GCOM chair, Claudette Singh this morning, and we rather presume, is studying that report there, and it is bringing out some critical things, some worrying things according to the opposition. The GCOM CEO has raised questions about Region 1, and he's saying that he don't believe that it's above board. People questioning whether Lowenfield has that authority to do that. Even that being the case, does GCOM, the commission, have to go ahead and contemplate what he would have said there, and how would that factor into the decision-making process with regards to the declarations? There was always a feeling on some part of the populace, and we would have seen these issues raised, that when the recount would have come on, it says you do the recount, whatever it comes up, the figures that comes up, you put it out there, you make a declaration. If there's objections to it or observations, it has to be addressed by way of an elections petition after the declarations would have been made by GCOM. Do you hold this view, or is this a total deviation if GCOM decide to go ahead and consider, take into account and make it part of the decision process? This is the report of Keith Lowenfield.
I don't know if Mr. Lowenfield really considered the implications of his report. I think they're all looking at the implications of influencing the chairman to make a decision. They're not thinking of the implications of throwing their own supporters and throwing their people under the bus. And you know, this is where I hate the notion of no witch hunt and no this and no that. If you're witches, let us hunt you. You know, if there are going to be witches, then there must be witch hunt. Or if there are people who are going to be treasonous to this nation, then we have to deal with them condignly. But, you know, Leonard, I think, you know, look, in reality, let us be fair. Lowenfield supervised Mingo. Lowenfield knew fully well where Mingo got his fraudulent numbers from. Lowenfield said nothing, did nothing to stop Mingo. Instead, Lowenfield prepared a report using Mingo's numbers. So could we have really expected different from Lowenfield? I dare say not. Lowenfield was long seen to be going down this road, and I think it was surprising that the chairman did not find it within her powers to replace Lowenfield, because it's the same man that supervised Mingo, is the same man that overlooked everything there, saw from spreadsheet to bedsheet, as Safe Conrad said, yet he was allowed to supervise this. And so it speaks to the chairman too, and how much she's willing to really be the Iron Lady everybody wants her to be.
Absolutely, there, Yog. And so I think we'd have to bring the program down to a close. I know that it looks very nice that we're in blackout here in the studio, so we are going to do a couple of things. So, Yog, in the meantime, I want to say any closing remarks before we close the program out today?
I just want to ask everybody, let's continue to be mature. Let's continue to have discussions like what we have had here. And to remind everyone, this platform is neither pro-PPP nor pro-PNC. We're calling it how we see it. We're calling out the politicians how we see it. I just want to remind you all to do what we are doing here. We can agree, we can disagree, we certainly discuss, but don't let your emotions take hold of you. And don't be a Lowenfield. Be pragmatic, be open, and be ready to agree to disagree. Don't let us make a fool of ourselves, or enough people are making a fool of Guyana. Let us not become the fools that make a fool of Guyana. Let's leave that in the primary domain of the handful of politicians doing it.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, myself, Leonard Gildarie, and it's been a deep pleasure as always to be with you here on Elections COVID-19 Watch here, Kaito Radio 99.1, 99.5. You could watch this again right on Facebook here on Kaito Radio, or you could go on YouTube, see us on Kaicho Radio there. You subscribe to that and let us see those comments on that. Of course, you could get us on Kaicho News Online. We're going to try to be back with you. We're making arrangements for a show tomorrow evening, room 592, in keeping with our commitment to bring you the news with regards to not only elections and COVID-19 watch, but any other developments that would pertain to the elections. So, Yog, thank you very much as normal. I know that Saturday and I've taken you away from some important things, but thank you. So always you've been a very gracious co-host. And I want to say most of all, thank you for everybody who's tuned in as normal. We have our phone number here, our WhatsApp number, 6222222. We have about 3 or 4 hampers left, and so we want to give it out. Let's hear some of those stories you're badly in need. Take it. We want to hear from the people who are badly in need. Text us, tell us the situation, and we're going to give you a call and make arrangements for them. We're going to select those 4 out of the list, and we're going to call you. But we thank you, and do have a pleasant rest of the weekend until then. And I want to say thank you very much to our people down in the studio here, to Yog. Raj and Kevin has been very gracious with us too, although they put me in darkness. And thank you right across this nation and wherever you would have joined us from. Yog, have a pleasant rest of the afternoon, sir.
You too. Thank you. Goodbye, one.